Welcome to the Fade 5 here on YouTube. We got Nate Jacobson next to me. I'm Ben Wittenstein. Nate, it's snowing outside. We're approaching week 13 of college football. It's feeling like we're finally into the holiday season. Bowl season's right around the corner, but we still got a couple weeks left and a fun slate this weekend. How you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good. Kind of feels weird. This feels like kind of the last full week of college football because next week's Thanksgiving, where there's a couple games or more than a handful of games on Friday, and then Saturday, which is a little bit of a smaller slate because of so many games on Friday. So this kind of feels like the last official week of college football regular season. But with what we have coming up with college football playoff, I'm pretty excited to get that going, and conference championship week the weekend after Thanksgiving. So a lot of exciting times. Maybe in past years, the season was kind of winding down and all the focus was on NFL, but there'll be plenty of focus on college football through December and then into January.
Yeah, we got some fun games. Of course, the game I've been nervous for since Sunday, basically, is IU Indiana. We got a fun
We'll
game
talk
for
about
that
game.
We'll talk a lot about that game, but we got some fun games here and there, kind of scattered across the schedule. So let's start with what we always do with the Plus Bus, going into our favorite plus 100 or more bets on the money line. Some underdogs. Nate, we'll start with you. Who do you like to maybe get the upset this weekend?
Yeah, I think we got home last week with Kansas on the money line against BYU. I know we both were staying up late in the night, texting with a few of our friends who also like to wager on college football. We were pretty excited about the Jayhawks outright win to make sure that the Big 12 is going to be a one-bid league for the college football playoff. But this week, I'm going to Auburn and taking the Auburn Tigers, plus 110 on the money line. I did bet personally +3. If you haven't bet this yet, I do like the money line, but I also would try to get +3 if it happens, or if it gets to +3 before kickoff, which is a 6:30 start in Auburn on a local time on Saturday evening. So Auburn this season has been one of the unluckiest teams in college football. In fact, I saw a tweet last week from a Twitter account at CFB Data, and Auburn was literally the unluckiest team in college football. At the time, they only had 3 wins, but their expected wins based on post-game win expectancy was 5.7. Then last week, they go out, beat UL Monroe. So this team could easily have 6 or 7 wins. You look at some of their losses this season, they had 5 turnovers each and losses to Cal and Arkansas. The Oklahoma game, look at that box score. Absolutely ridiculous how they blew that game. They're up 21-10. Give a touchdown, and Payne Thorne throws an inexcusable pick 6 to lose the lead, and then they lose to Oklahoma, and that's Oklahoma's only SEC win so far. Then you go to Mizzou, you're up 17-3. Brady Cook is in the hospital getting an MRI on his ankle, and Brady Cook comes back from the hospital, leads Mizzou to a comeback win, and then you lose to Vanderbilt, even though you outgained the Commodores by 100 yards. You also mix in a loss to Georgia at Georgia, which is, it's excusable losing to Georgia. But like looking at those other losses, it definitely could be a different season for Auburn if a few results go their way. Payne Thorne's an experienced quarterback. Freshman wide receiver Cam Coleman's really coming on. Check out the catch he had last week, his 3rd touchdown of the game against UL Monroe. Absolute wild stuff from a true freshman. The catch he had in the end zone. So I do think Auburn maybe a little undervalued, better than their record. And on the other side, Texas A&M, I'll give them credit. They've had a strong season. The Jimbo years were absolutely disastrous towards the end. Mike Elko came in, cleaned it up, has a lot of talent to work with. They also had an easy schedule, though. And so far in this season, they have avoided Texas. They do play them next week. They don't play Georgia, don't play Tennessee, don't play Alabama, don't play Ole Miss. So those are the 5 top teams right now in the college football playoff rankings from the SEC, and A&M's avoided all of them. They did beat LSU. That was kind of their signature win, but LSU is kind of dominating that game until A&M made a quarterback change, and they brought in Marcel Reed, A&M did, and LSU was clearly not prepared for the quarterback run game, and also that win just hasn't aged well with LSU losing Alabama and Florida the last 2 games. And then the week after, in the kind of their toughest road test, A&M kind of make a statement in SEC play, last undefeated team, that absolutely get dominated by South Carolina. So I do not trust this Texas A&M team on the road. This is going to be a true road game, only their 4th of the season. So yeah, I really do like Auburn here to pull off the upset and put a lot of drama, I guess is the word is, in terms of the college football playoff, because A&M does control their own destiny to make the SEC title game with that game against Texas next week. But I do think that they lose this week.
I love it. I think that's a really good play. And it seems to me that's kind of the sharp side of everything, as you talked about the lines moved in Auburn's way. And it just seems like this is the week Auburn can kind of push through, and it gives the fans hope for next season, possibly for something like that.
I needed some water there after going so long on. My plus bus, that's supposed to be the shortest one. And it's honestly one of my more passionate picks. The reason why it's a plus bus and not in the fade five or in the 5 is because I didn't get the +3. So the money line is what it is. And I'll have an article about this game probably Friday morning on the Gaming Juice if you want to check that out. I've been waiting to see if the number changes before filing that to our amazing editor, Joe.
As you can see, sign up for free on thegamingjuice.com so you can do it. All right, Nate, go to Wisconsin for my money line. They travel to Rutgers and
you mean Nebraska?
Sorry, Nebraska, but none of that matters because I'm not doing Wisconsin. We're going to Indiana money line, Nate.
What?
They are going to win in Columbus. They're going to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. +380, Bet Rivers. I'm just going to put the money. I don't care. You know what? This team for Indiana might be the Indiana team of destiny. They're coming off of a bye. This is statistically the best offense and the best defense Ohio State has played all season long. And they come in losing 2 offensive linemen. Will Howard might be pressured until the cows come home for this game. I could see a world, and I'm hoping that there's a world where Indiana can pull off the upset on the road against Ohio State. Kurt Cignetti has his team just pumped. They're ready. They just don't make a lot of mistakes. And for Indiana teams of the past that have come close to beating Ohio State, they just make mistakes down towards the end of the game. The talent gap is too big. They get in their own heads. They just make mistakes, and Ohio State ends up winning by 2 or more touchdowns. But this season, I think this team is going to be different. They don't shoot themselves in the foot, especially when you're on the road. That's a big thing that you have to be aware of. I think Indiana can pull off the upset. Am I biased? Hell yes. But I think Indiana can do it, Nate.
Yeah, and as we record this on a Thursday late afternoon, the +13s and 13.5 on Indiana got bet earlier today, and now we're at +12 pretty much across the board. We'll talk a little bit more about that game later because I'm sure you'll explain one of the reasons why that line has maybe moved a little bit in the last few hours.
Yes, I have a lot more to say on this game too. I have a bet that I really do love. But we'll get into our top 5 for this weekend. And Nate, we'll start with you for number 5. If we can get the voicer going, there we go. Or maybe not.
Number 5.
There we go.
There we go. Let's start off early in the day, noon Eastern start in Gainesville, Florida, and take Ole Miss. I wrote up this game on the Gaming Juice at -10. 10.5 is fine. Obviously not the best, in terms of chasing a little bit of a number, but I do think if you can find a -10, that's fine, or just play it at -10.5, because I think Ole Miss really will dominate in this game. Really like the spot for Ole Miss off a bye. They're kind of motivated, I feel like, to run up the score here. They're, securely in the college football playoff if they win their last 2 games against Florida and Mississippi State, which they should. But there also is a chance you win by margin and you maybe can be hosting a playoff game instead of going up to the Midwest like they are projected right now. There's also some hidden motivation, I think, because before Billy Napier got the vote of confidence from the athletic director, Lane Kiffin was always rumored this season maybe to get the Florida job, and we know Lane pays attention to social media, and he'll make sure that he's going to put an exclamation point on a potential victory. Also, Ole Miss looking healthier. You get Trey Harris back, and I just like this Ole Miss team. I know I've been down on them pretty much all season, but what I saw from them against Georgia really changed my opinion on them. The offense was really good. They should have scored more. They settled for a lot of field goals. Their defense was really impressive. The defense that we heard so much about in the summer, how all these transfers are going to come make a difference, they finally played up to their expectation, or at least it made it obvious that they played up for their expectation because they were going up against a good opponent in Georgia. And then Georgia turns around, looks really good against Tennessee. So that win has aged really well. So I think Ole Miss has a shot to win multiple playoff games. If they do make it, obviously, you need to win this game and then, for my sake, hopefully cover. But I like this opportunity to bet against Florida. They were on the field. Their defense was for 92 plays against LSU last week. they're coming off a stretch of games where they played Georgia, Texas, and LSU right in a row, and now they're going into Ole Miss. They already have 5 wins, so they know they'll have a better chance next week when they travel to Florida State in terms of trying to get bowl eligible. So I can see a situation where, especially with a banged up quarterback in DJ Lagway, maybe they take this game a little bit easy if things don't go right and they rest some players after how long their defense was on the field last week. And that Florida State game is just a lot bigger because you're battling for recruits with Florida State. As bad as Florida State's been, they're still a school that has the potential to recruit at a high level, and Florida State are in battle. So would be big for Florida to win that game. So I feel like they have a more important game next week. So yeah, all those things combination. You can check out the article for maybe some more nuggets on this game, including that Trey Harris, the star wide receiver for Ole Miss, is coming back. But yeah, I like the Rebels here to win big to start the day on Saturday.
Yeah, I think this is a bet that I'm probably going to tell you on once Saturday rolls around and I'm looking for some stuff to bet. It just makes a whole lot of sense. Ole Miss they've had a difficult run of things over the past month and a half. So I think this is kind of the game that allows them to break out, and the line is moving in that direction. So hopefully it stays around 10 and a half for my sake, trying to bet it on Saturday, but we'll see if that creeps up to, 11, 12, kind of dead numbers. So it probably wouldn't do too much more than 10 and a half. Let's go to my number 4, Nate.
Number 4.
I'm going to do Texas Tech -3.5. And these are 2 teams, Texas Tech going to Oklahoma State. I've been burned by both of them, but I feel a little bit stronger about Texas Tech. And Nate, you can please disabuse me of any ignorance that I have, because to me, it almost seems like Oklahoma State's just done. They've given up. They're dead. 3-7. They've lost 7 in a row. Both teams coming out of a bye. And I know Mike Gundy's got a pretty good record off of a bye. However, again, I don't know. Oklahoma State just seems dead in the water to me. It seems like a team that probably is just given up. There's no hope for them to make a bowl game. They're just kind of done. It's senior day for them. But other than that, I don't see much that has going for them for this game. And Texas Tech, this is their second game off of a bye. Last time they're off a bye, they played Baylor and got walloped. So I think they probably kind of understand maybe some things they need to change in a bye week. So I think we'll see the Red Raiders come out with a little bit more of an angst, especially offensively. And I know both teams defensively are not good, but I think the Red Raiders offense is going to be the difference in this game. Offensively, they love to pass the ball. Oklahoma State's defense just does not defend well. They don't have takeaways. They're 118th in takeaways per game over their last 3 games, which is kind of the reason why, again, I think this team's just given up. They're not even taking the ball away, forcing any turnovers in the opponent. And also with the Red Raiders, they pass the ball like 55% of their snaps. So they're just going to be passing this all around the field. Oklahoma State, I don't think is going to be able to stop them. I just don't see how they stay in this game. I don't love the hook on the 3, but because I just think Oklahoma State's dead, I'll take that extra half and lay -3.5 for Texas Tech.
Yeah, I would try to wait to see if a -3 appears, just because we've seen so much late movement in the week in college football all season.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Oklahoma State, you mentioned Gundy off a bye pretty good. Last time they were off a bye, they almost beat BYU in a game they probably should have won. So maybe there is like kind of one last reset and they go all in for their last home game of the season before they go to Colorado on Black Friday and then probably get absolutely dominated by Colorado's offense, which I'll have a little bit more on in the next point. But yeah, maybe this is kind of the all-in game for Oklahoma State. Is kind of like I wouldn't say their Super Bowl because they had high expectations going into the year to compete in the Big 12, but they're not going to make a bowl game because as you mentioned, they're 3-7, and this is kind of their last game that they probably have a realistic chance they think they could win. So we'll be interested to see if there's any motivation from them. If there's not, then there might be bigger issues with the Cowboys program.
All right, let's talk about that Colorado team you mentioned for number 3.
Number 3.
Yep, but I'm not going on Colorado. I'm going against them with the Kansas Jayhawks. Third week in a row, I'm on Kansas in some form in this show, and it's worked out well. So why not go back to them? And I'm just going to point out that Kansas before the year, they were pretty high expectations. You have a really good coach, Lance Leipold, Jalen Daniels returning, Devin Neal. Good running back. It's just always been a well-coached team since Leipold's been in Lawrence, taking them from basement dwellers to a team that's going to, consistently compete for bowl games at least. And Kansas, they've just been really unlucky this season. If you look at their 6 losses, they had a late third quarter lead or fourth quarter lead in all of them. And now they're starting to play like the team we kind of expected, a team that had a win total of 8 or 8.5. and they're kind of getting back to what we expected. As I mentioned, they crushed Iowa State. They had a little bit of good luck finally go their way against BYU last week, I must admit, especially with that pooch punt that hit BYU's player in the helmet, and then they couldn't pick up the ball, and Kansas was able to have a short touchdown drive to take the lead for good. But now against Colorado, I know Colorado has looked awesome. I think they are the best ATS team in the country at 8-2. But Colorado, just the schedule hasn't been that tough going into the season. It looked like there was not going to be any like surefire wins for Colorado. But because they've played teams that have been down compared to preseason expectation, like a banged up Utah last week, Arizona in the middle of the season, Texas Tech a few weeks ago, where they're trailing 13-0 in Lubbock before turning the game around and winning 42-27. And then the UCF also, they beat in early October or late September before, or maybe it was early October, but they did beat UCF, but that was before UCF made the quarterback change that has made them at least a respectable team down the stretch of the season. So I feel like Colorado's had a very favorable schedule. The losses have been against Nebraska, have kind of completely fallen off. They also lost to Kansas State, which that loss doesn't look great anymore that loss doesn't look like a good loss because Kansas State just lost to Houston and Arizona State the last few weeks. So yeah, I have some doubts about Colorado, their quality of play, and I think Kansas trending up. And if Colorado starts off slow like they did the last time they were on the road, even though this game is technically in Kansas City because of the renovations going on in Lawrence, I do think that Kansas with Daniels, with Devin Neal, would be able to run the ball well at the lead, and a well-coached team like Kansas could hang on and then prevent a Colorado comeback. So at the +3, which is very necessary, don't take the 2.5. Make sure to get the +3 and grab Kansas plus the points against Colorado on Saturday.
Yeah, I will defer to you for any type of Kansas bet. Kind of the similar way where I've somehow had a weird feeling for Syracuse. You've got a good feeling for the Jayhawks this season.
Yeah, and I did bet Kansas before the season under their win total. And I'll admit, I wouldn't say I was lucky on that, but they definitely – I mean, if you just look at the Illinois game, the UNLV game, definitely the West Virginia game, even Arizona State last month, like they were in control of those games or had a really good like 50-50 shot at worst to win those games. And they ended up losing all of them. So, yeah, I do. In the Kansas State game, even, they were a 10-point underdog. The last time they lost against Kansas State, they only lose by 2. I did mention that, Kansas State not as good as we thought, but yeah, Kansas is kind of fighting, playing really well, and at 4-6, they know that they win out, they'd make a bowl game. So we're going to see a really strong effort from Leopold's team on Saturday and try to cause another stir in the crazy Big 12 race that we've seen this season.
Number 2.
All right, Nate, for my number 2 bet, I gave you Notre Dame -14.5, but I think I'm going to switch that up on you because I took Notre Dame -14. I still like a -14, but there's no 14s left on the board. So I'm going to do what I wrote about for the Gaming Juice and take their team total over 29.5. I really like this bet, to be honest. I honestly might bet that as well as -14. I think Notre Dame's offense is just an absolute wagon this season, especially we've seen over the last 4 or 5 games. They just cannot be stopped when they have the football. 38 points per game is their average. 46 points per game is what they're averaging in their last 3 games this season. They are balling out. They're 6th in points per play. And Army, as patriotic as I am, I don't think I'll be able to take that Army defense. They don't, to me, seem like they'll be able to stop a team like Notre Dame. They haven't seen a team like Notre Dame this season of that offensive caliber. They're only 56th in defensive success rate is what Army is, so very pedestrian, about middle of the pack. They're 82nd in defensive rushing success rate, so they're not going to be able to stop Notre Dame when Notre Dame has the football and trying to run it on the ground. Notre Dame runs the ball a lot. 55% of their offensive snaps are running the ball, and they rank 4th in rush yards per attempt. They get almost 6 yards per rush attempt. If they do that against Army, I just don't see a way Army's going to be able to, A, stick with them, B, prevent them from getting 30-plus points. I just think this Notre Dame team, for as big, strong, and talented as they are, maybe Army sticks with them for a half with the way that they play. They maintain time of possession really well. But by the time the second half rolls around, I just think Notre Dame's offense and the way that they play, the physicality up front is just going to wear the Army down. And we're going to see Notre Dame become very friendly with the end zone in the second half of this football game. So I'm going to take the over 29.5. They're usually able to get to 30 plus pretty easily. Notre Dame is this season. So I know this is a big game, top 25 matchup. You play Army, Notre Dame. It's in Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. I still like Notre Dame to score the football here. I think getting 30 plus points is not as hard of a task as this number may make it seem.
Yeah, I do like a Notre Dame in this game to cover. I saw when it got down to 14, kind of missed the boat there. But yeah, I'll probably have some sort of Notre Dame bet, and maybe I'll just tail the one that you gave out. But I do think Notre Dame wins comfortably.
I like it. All right, Nate, let us go to our number one play of the weekend.
Number 1.
Oh, of course. We had to go to Indiana, Ohio State. I mentioned their money line that I like, but Nate, we'll start with you. What you like in this game? We both have a bet, and honestly, they correlate. This isn't a fight. This is a nice little agreement. We're shaking hands here in a way.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a fight. I was ready to bet Ohio State. In terms of contributing to the article that you have up on the gamingjuice.com,
yes,
where I was going to make the case for Ohio State, just kind of questioning Indiana and who they haven't played, where they have had a very favorable schedule. You look at who they've played on the road in true road games. It was UCLA, where there was like half the crowd was Indiana fans. Northwestern on their temporary stadium on the lake, where it's probably 3/4 Indiana fans, or just completely no home field for Northwestern. And then they did have a road game against Michigan State where they start off slow. They get out to a 10-0 deficit before figuring it out. But this Michigan State team just not ready to compete in big-time college football. So now thought it would be a little bit different going to Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State, one of the best, most talented teams in the country. I was also a little bit concerned by Indiana's second half performance against Michigan, especially because Michigan, obviously they're struggling this year, but they do have some talent that's like comparable to Ohio State in terms of players in the trenches, especially on like defensive tackle. So yeah, I was kind of just saying like, give me Ohio State's talent, a team that was unlucky to lose to Oregon, or a little bit unlucky to lose to Oregon, and could be undefeated, and then maybe this line is well over 2 touchdowns. However, Tuesday night, get the news, Seth McLaughlin, the center for Ohio State, Alabama transfer, out for the year. And one of the biggest question marks for this Ohio State team, and why I was so impressed with their win against Penn State, was they had a couple injuries on their offensive line, and they were able to kind of figure out what their best five and shuffle, and they were able to kind of keep Will Howard clean against a good Penn State front. But now you lose the center. You have to do more reshuffling. It's a little bit of a scary situation for Ohio State. Maybe not necessarily in this game in terms of winning and losing, but going forward as a national title contender. So because of that, I just kind of want no part of the game in terms of the side. If you haven't bet yet, I did personally bet Ohio State on a look-ahead number below 10, but I'm not going to be saying bet Ohio State now at -12 because of some new information that we got. So I'm just going to stick with the first half under. I do think the under for the full game also makes sense, but the reason I like the first half is because there's a scenario where if Indiana is down by a lot, that they're going to want to keep scoring to make the scoreboard look better in terms of the college football playoff standings, where you lose a close game at Ohio State, and then maybe you don't drop behind a team like Tennessee. But if you get blown out, then there could be some trouble for Kirk Sagnetti's team and the eyes of the committee. So I don't really want to mess with the full game because of some other factors. So I'm just going to stick with the first half. I think Ohio State's offense with this new offensive line maybe starts off a little bit slow. And the Indiana offense that has been so good this season, having a little bit of a step up in class, that Curtis Rourke maybe struggles a little bit against the Buckeyes defense.
I think there's very real reasons to be worried about this Indiana team and how they're able to score. So that's why, honestly, Nate, I'm going to be taking half of the full game total, which is the Ohio State half, and taking the under in the Ohio State team total under 32.5. For a lot of the reasons you mentioned, their offensive line to me is very worrisome. Now they're going to be without their center. They're going to be without their left tackle. And Will Howard already struggles with pressure. I think he's like the 6th most pressured quarterback when it comes to teams not even blitzing. They get to him. They're able to get to him, and it could rush him. And Indiana's run defense is really good. So if Ohio State decides let's run the ball to kind of keep Will Howard safe, the Indiana defense will be able to stop him. I think, you hear people say this game's going to be won on the trenches, and I think that's absolutely right. And if it's going to be played on the trenches, at least defensively, Indiana might have the leg up over Ohio State. So for an OSU team that we've seen struggle sometimes be able to score the ball against better defenses, Penn State, they got 20 points. Oregon, they got 31 points, which is still under this number. The Indiana defense is top 10 in the country, which is better numerically than Penn State and then Oregon. So I can see a world where Ohio State gets to 26, 27 points, maybe even 30 points with some field goals and touchdowns here and there. But to see them get 33 on an Indiana team that's shown to be really good against the run, really good to getting to quarterbacks, which Will Howard has suffered a lot pressure-wise, I can see Indiana keeping Ohio State's team total under 32.5.
Yeah, I think there's a chance both of us could win this bet in terms of the picks we're giving out. I'm not sure about your plus bus. That's a little ambitious, but we'll never know. We'll see. It'll be an interesting game. Definitely one I'm very looking forward to watching. And honestly, maybe the most important game of the college football season so far, just because of how the playoff rankings have kind of shaken out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like a debate. Like, is it going to be 1-loss Indiana or another 2-loss SEC team, whether it is Tennessee or maybe even if Texas loses next week to A&M. So it's kind of like it'll be an interesting ranking show, I think, on Tuesday based on this result, and will kind of teach us about like how exactly the bracket might play out and shake out in the end.
Yeah, if anything, an Indiana win would help shut up a lot of the SEC supremacists out there that we've seen talking about Indiana's strength of schedule and about everyone saying, a 3-loss SEC team should get in, yada, yada, yada. All of that stuff, it would be great to have them go by the wayside to see when Indiana wins a game like this. That would be lovely. But Nate, it's time. Bonus time. We got our bonus time bets for this weekend. And you, sir, 3 times in a row you're going to this school. This is your third week in a row. I've barely had to change the lower third for this.
Why would I stop? They're 2-0 against the spread with or 2-0 in these picks. I think I had the money line against Syracuse, and then I had with a plus 19, 18 and a half.
Yeah.
And they almost won the game outright against SMU. So why not? Let's take Boston College, home underdog against North Carolina. And I'll be honest, I really just need this Boston College team to win, because I did bet North Carolina under 7.5 wins, and I was looking really good when they were 3-4 like a month ago, and then they rattled off 3 straight wins against not the best competition in Virginia, Florida State, and Wake Forest. But that's what you get when you're betting unders in the on the ACC teams. The schedule could end up being very easy, and it probably has been pretty easy for North Carolina. And they play North Carolina State next week at home, so I feel like I really need this game from Boston College to win the game to secure the win total. But I'm also going to bet some +3 on Boston College, who I feel like a little bit undervalued. I know they have a new quarterback in Grayson James after what's happened with Thomas Castellanos, where now it looks like he's going to the transfer portal. But I thought Grayson James was fine against SMU and fit Bill O'Brien's offense well enough. And I thought they played pretty well against SMU in a game where SMU had every motivation to try to run up the score and impress the committee, and they only lost by 3. So yeah, give me Boston College on the road, or at home, as an underdog. And I don't really trust North Carolina and Mac Brown to get the job done here. So yeah, I really hope Boston College wins. A lot of money will swing one way or the other based on this game. So it might not be the biggest bet of the week in an individual game, but in terms of futures, this one is very important to me.
Yeah, Fade 5 is the place to come if you want guys who really know the smaller schools in college football. Boston College, Syracuse, Kansas. We got it all. We know all the small guys.
I mean, it's still Power 5 schools. It's not like we're talking about Georgia Southern and Old Dominion.
That's true. Well, I guess this is not a small school, but I'm talking about SMU for my bonus bet. Laying the 10 against Virginia. And to me, I know, we talked in a group chat that we have, a betting group chat. You said you might lean towards Virginia in this one. I did really want SMU to stay at 9.5 so I can make this bet a lot more confidently, but it's now back to 10. It was at 10.5 earlier in the week. So it's been fluctuating through that number 10 line. But to me, Nate, SMU is just, they're the much better team. And I don't really have much else to say about this. They're really good. Their offensive success rate is top 50. They have a top 40 defensive success rate in Virginia. They're not a good football team. They struggle offensively. They're not good at passing the football. Defensively, they haven't even cracked the top 50 in their success rate. They struggle to score. And you're looking at this list of these advanced stats between the two teams, and almost every advanced stat, SMU is not only better, they're much better, and they match up really well with what Virginia does poorly, with what SMU does well. So to me, 10 points, this should be a matchup that SMU wins by 2 touchdowns plus. Going on the road could, that sometimes changes things and can be funky with visiting teams, but I can see a game where SMU wins this game by 14 plus. So I'll take laying the 10.
So my concern with SMU originally was just a team that it might be a little overvalued because everyone sees them, undefeated in the ACC, top of the standings, highly ranked. So it's kind of like maybe a little bit of pressure if things don't go right, especially a weird trip for them going to Charlottesville, Virginia, a team from the Dallas area. But I also looked at Virginia last week, and I know they covered against Notre Dame, but they were also down 35-0, and Notre Dame could have probably scored more. And then Virginia scoring 2 late touchdowns, including one in the final minute, to make the scoreboard look more respectable. So maybe this Virginia team is just that bad, and SMU could name their score if they want to. So yeah, after looking at this game more, I have no problem with those bets, or that bet. I do think this number is probably right, and situationally, maybe it goes into SMU's favor if they're able to jump on Virginia and keep scoring.
Absolutely. Well, Nate, I think that's all I got. We got a nice little thing of bets right there rolling along, if everyone wants to see. You can go back, watch some of our original picks. Also, don't forget, you can sign up for free at thegamingjuice.com. You can read Nate, you can read myself. It's all free to sign up. You can comment, talk with us, talk with Brad. You get NFL picks as well, NBA picks. I'll write some NBA stuff. We got hockey. It's a fun site. It's good. It's all free. So it's available to you at all times of the day. And hey, sometimes we win some bets, sometimes we get the W's on there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been okay. You've been doing better than me, but it's all about finishing strong, and we'll have a lot of bets or previews for some of the big games. I'm sure we'll probably cover every playoff game at least. I don't know if we want to do bowl games because numbers move so quick, but definitely for the 12 playoff games or 11 playoff games in the 12 team format, I feel like we'll have at least a pick or two in each one. So yeah, let's try to finish strong next week, Thanksgiving week, and then conference championship week, and then a fun playoff awaiting us.
I'm pumped, baby. I'm ready. Get ready for Indiana, Ohio State this weekend. Good luck to everybody. Nate, good luck to you. Good luck to our viewers. And go read us at thegamingjuice.com, and we'll see everyone right here next week.